Hello there, Seraphim17 once again. This is my Evil Within Akumu difficulty, no upgrades, no keys, walkthrough. This is the final part of Chapter 6, the level that I think is the most difficult on the full run, and we're moving into the cemetery where Joseph's going to cover us and we're going to take on some dudes. So I just read a comment on YouTube, man. People say the most baffling things. I really don't understand it, and sometimes it's just... it hurts my brain. Somebody just said that Akumu mode, no upgrade, isn't a place for experimentation. Let me just let that sink in, folks. Like, how the fuck are you meant to figure out how to win if you don't experiment with different strategies? Like, just process the mind that came from, that is a thing that they think. Like, I can't, it doesn't even... I can't compute at all. Like, do I use the same strategies I used on Survivor that don't work? Like, what the fuck is that? Like, some people are so strange. I don't understand it at all. Like, the game has been out less than a week. How can people expect you to do everything the way either they do it or the way that's the best to be done when nobody knows that yet because nobody fully understands the game? It's just so stupid. But the less I say about that, the better, because it's just... that, to me, is YouTube all over. You just get some people that just don't understand what they're saying. They really don't. But this is all pretty simple up until a point. As I mentioned in the previous video, there's a really cheeky way to beat the two giant fellas, which you're going to see coming up. The giant fellas die by 2 punches with the brass knuckles when they're fully upgraded on Survivor. I believe they'll probably die by 2 rockets because the rocket launcher on this game seems to be very weak. When I've been experimenting with upgrading stuff, I've noticed that it doesn't tell you what the damage of the weapon is, it just tells you what the percentage it was and what it is now. So it doesn't tell you any damage variables at all. It just tells you that now it will be 110% more powerful before it was only 100% powerful. So without those base figures, it's very difficult to know just how damaging things are. What the upgrades do give me an interesting impression of is just how powerful certain things are that I haven't really used. For instance, the harpoons on the agony bolts, they're one of the cheapest of the bolts to use, and if you upgrade it, it gets 240% damage, which means that thing's probably going to be one of the most powerful and easy to access tools in the game, which is kind of interesting. Really interesting, in fact, because the final upgrade puts fire on it, which I wonder if that means it'll hurt the Laura demon. That'll be interesting. But here is your checkpoint for the two brothers. Over here is going to be some shotgun shells usually. The game is quite kind when it comes to giving you things to deal with certain situations, but even when it doesn't, I'm going to prove that there are ways to overcome some of it. Some of it is not going to be optimized. You know, I'm trying to express as much as I can that this is not going to be an optimized run. People seem to have this assumption that because it's no upgrades means that it's optimized, when that's not the case at all. And, you know, the internet's just a funny place with elitism and silliness. But here is one of the brothers. He's going to immediately pick up an item to try and strike you with, so if you run past him now, it's the best opportunity to do so without taking damage. Directly in front of me is a tomb of sorts. It's kind of like a big statue, like a giant epitaph, and in here is this little hole. So they cannot hurt you in here. They will try, but they can't do it. And I find this really interesting because there's a boss coming up later on, which is called the Amalgam Alpha, which there are 2 rooms in that encounter where you can sit in them and pick up ammo, and the boss can't fit in. But the boss has 2 exclusive maneuvers to attack in the room. If you're close to the doorways, he does a specific one either side. If he can't get you with that, he does a full room grab, which kills. So he's been designed to stop people from using those rooms against him. Yet these 2 brothers do not have any, or seemingly any, which I came across, method of getting you out of this hiding spot. And this is the strategy, ladies and gentlemen. You stay in here for about 40 minutes, and Joseph shoots both of the enemies. That'll be the best way to do this. However, because this is a guide, and I'm trying to, you know, get things done quite swiftly, I'm going to wait for the brothers to group up, and I'm going to throw a grenade at them. And look at his attack, it's coming through the geometry, but it's not hitting me. That's something I find really funny, actually, because for some reason it's not registering damage on me yet. I've been damaged on swings that have gone through pillars when I was nowhere near them, and I've also been grabbed through a wall, which I have a lovely fail video uploaded, but I'm not sharing it just yet because I don't want to overflow the sub box with fail videos.
I can't handle them on my own.
So every so often Joseph will say that, telling you that, I don't know, he's having a bad time, but they can't get to him, so he's doing just fine. Here's me throwing the grenade. That was not the best grenade, but it did what we needed to do. It added a little bit of damage to them. In the model viewer, there's other weapons that I haven't come across in the game. There's a second sniper rifle that looks a lot like the R700 from Call of Duty 4. There is a Rafika-esque pistol. I assume it's a burst fire pistol or an automatic pistol, which could be really interesting as I get cocked blocked by my camera angle there. And he nearly grabs me. Another thing you might be wondering, you cannot aim when you're crouched. It's the strangest thing ever. For some reason, it automatically presets him to standing, and right now I can't use any action whatsoever when it comes to damaging enemies. And there are a few circumstances where that would have been really useful. But it's just one of those really archaic notions that this game has. Of, you know, this is the way it is, this is the way it must be. But I'm just putting some extra damage on these enemies. My thoughts here are, I know after them that there's going to be some ammo for the next sequence, so I don't have to worry too much about my resources, especially with the pistol, because I think the pistol's fucking useless. Aside from knocking people over and shooting traps, it is literally the most worthless tool in the game. And I'm sure if you upgrade it, it probably gets really good, and I'm sure there's probably somebody out there in the coming months who's going to do something really impressive with the pistol, but it will not be me, and I will still not change my opinion on it, because it's just bad. But something to bear in mind as well, the explosive bolt on this weapon only gets upgraded to being, I think, 150% more damaging or something like that, which tells you just how strong it is at base level, which tells you it is one of the most powerful tools on a no upgrade run. But this is one of those strategies that I might have sped up, and in future, if something like this happens again where it takes a while but I'm just kind of hiding and using the fact that... So I would never normally shoot at range with this gun, but I get the feeling that if I didn't, these guys would one-shot me with stuff like that. But the shotgun does have semi-decent range. It has kind of random spread, but for the most it's okay. And Joseph's going to kill this one as well. We don't have to do anything because Joseph gets all super awesome. See that? Check him out. Just double headshots him.
Dead end.
But each of the brothers will drop gel. I wish we could use it on something, but we can't.
This way.
It would be cool if you could buy ammunition from something, because when you do New Game Plus, you have all these awesome guns, but you don't have any ammo for them. Like, you start with a Magnum, but you don't get Magnum ammo until, like, Chapter 11. Which I think is a massive oversight in the game. And there are a few things I've noticed with New Game Plus which just don't work as well as they would have done in perhaps Resident Evil, and one of the things that Resident Evil always got really right is there doesn't seem to be any more costumes, there doesn't seem to be any other modes like mercenaries, there's just a couple of weapons, and there's no unlimited ammo variants of anything, which I completely understand why they might not have chosen to have those, but they seem to be a survival horror staple now. We kind of expect that kind of thing. Or at least a super weapon. All you really get on this is a rocket launcher with about 30 rockets, and this really weird assault rifle with a terrible reticle that I don't think you can upgrade. So it's kind of interesting, but I do have the DLC, the pre-order DLC, so I can get the sawn-off shotgun and I can get those additional agony bolts, but I chose not to have them for this walkthrough so that it could help people that don't have them as well. And I want to try and make that as clear as I can without, you know, driving it home too much. This is a walkthrough intended to help people struggling on Akumu mode. The fact that it is a no upgrade run and a no key run is just some added stipulations to make the game more challenging for myself. You know, it's not about the pretension or the belief that I'm good at the game or any of that kind of stuff. It was all about being challenged, and I hope that comes across, because I don't want to attract the wrong type of people with this video, which is essentially those people on GameFAQs that are so far up their own ass they could essentially be self-suppositories. And you know who they are, because unfortunately there is a massive ego problem on that site, because they all bolster each other's ego in this kind of circle wank, which is an English version of a circle jerk, apparently. And I know those people individually will probably be really nice people, and in person they'll probably be even nicer, but when you put them on the internet with immunity and everybody else sucking them off because they're good at a game franchise, they turn into fucking evil people. And I learnt a very important lesson by posting a link to my walkthrough on that site, and I've never posted one since, because all it did was bring people I didn't want, and it was people who came to critique it. They didn't come to see if my strategies were good, they didn't come to see if it would help anybody, they didn't think it would help anybody, they came to pick fault. And that is not the audience I want, because anybody can pick fault with anything. You know, that's just how it works. And when it comes to the way people play a game, there is no perfect way to play a game unless it is a game that has a perfect way to be played, and none of them do. None of them do, guys. Like, the only game that probably has a perfect way to play is like that impossible game with the jumping, because every jump has to be the same or you die, and that's the game. Like, that's the only kind of games that can have a perfect kind of game. Like Pac-Man. In Pac-Man, I believe to get a perfect score you have to memorize the entire board. You have to do every single level in a certain way to do it a certain way, and that doesn't change because the ghosts are pre-programmed to move a certain way. You know, Pac-Man is not a game that I think you can freestyle and do the same as, is it Billy Mitchell when he did that perfect run? I don't think you can do that. Same with shmups.
Doesn't mean anything.
You can kind of play shmups where you react to it and you survive, but to get the best scores you have to learn the line of the level and do it picture perfect every time, so that you kill this enemy when all the bullets are on screen and just in time for this enemy to turn up. And it's essentially these perfect lines like driving games. They are really the only games that benefit from that perfect run, because they're the games that have that capacity. A game such as this, I honestly don't think it does. A perfect run for a survival horror game would be doing every single situation without maybe using an item, without shooting, without needing to heal. You know, somehow having a strategy where you get to win and you don't use resources to win. And to me, that's blocking out 90% of what makes the game good. Because some of the most fun parts about watching footage for the Evil Within for me so far, and I've watched a ton of it, is just seeing how differently everyone approaches the game. Because everyone's going to approach it differently, and that's what's awesome. But just the notion of perfect play, I watched a Bloodborne video. It was from the alpha test, and I do apologise if you want me to talk about Evil Within here, guys, but there's nothing much happening. When the boss turns up, we'll talk shop, but until then, it's going to be some tangents. And the video was in full capitals on his title, you know, to try and get people to click on it, because a lot of people do that. You know, big capitals, every single tag you could physically have in the fucking title, walkthrough repeated several times, even though it's not even a walkthrough. And it said perfect playthrough, walkthrough of the Bloodborne alpha. And to me, when somebody says perfect in a title, it has a certain connotation. Like, it really does. Because perfect play, to me, are those DVDs you can get for shmups, where the dude gets the best scores ever, world record scores, and never dies when he does them. Does no mistakes and does things that some people deem inhuman. Like a perfect play on a game such as, you know, Devil May Cry 3, is where they get the best rank, they take no damage, and they do it all in just amazingly stylish fashion. You know, some of them do it without upgrades, some of them do it with insane stipulations, and it is as close to perfect play as you can get, because they're doing everything perfectly, awesomely, amazingly. It's really fun to watch. I don't think the person who made that video knows what perfect means, and if he does, he needs to look it up, because he's wrong. There was nothing perfect about the playthrough he had. He got hit several times, he came close to dying several times, he got knocked down a whole bunch, he was using healing items left, right and centre. If anything, it was the most perfectly average play I think I've ever watched, and that's not to say I could do better, or that's not to, you know, take the high road of, oh, I can't stand any gamers unless they can beat, you know, Mile High Club without shooting. You know, I'm not that type of person, I never have been. I just enjoy a good challenge if it's fair, and if it's not fair, I enjoy it slightly less. But to me, that's false advertising. You know, that should be flagged for falsely advertising something it isn't. And the thing that really frustrates me with that kind of thing on YouTube is he probably doesn't have a single comment in his entire section that mentions this isn't a perfect play. It'll have a ton of people saying he's shit and he's crap and they could do better because, you know, YouTube's full of godly gamers. But I bet none of them are picking up too much on the perfect play. Yet, people who do perfect play, you know, people like the Godfather Dictator who does these crazy no-damage runs of games like Ninja Gaiden Sigma and Ninja Gaiden Black, which anyone who's played these games on Master Ninja knows they're some of the most brutal that exist. Yet, when you look in his comments every so often, it's a bunch of people saying that he uses UTs too much. Like, how the fuck else is he meant to do what he's doing, you know? Just a bunch of people doubting difficulties and things, like on a lot of stuff he's done. You know, people doubting things you can't doubt. But this is the boss anyhow, guys. This is my favourite tree. My technique is simple. I wait for him to get as close as he physically can be, I shoot him in the face with a shotgun, and then I put an explosive bolt on him. I then push over to this gate, put my back against it, and I wait. I tried standing close to him, it didn't work for me. This one works for me. Do whatever works for you. It's the best way you can play the game. Anybody else tells you you're doing it wrong, tell them to fuck off, because there's no right way. It's whatever works for you. Then I come back over here so I can put my back against the wall. There are a couple of bear traps around the centre of this arena. You need to know about them or you'll get instantly killed. There's that. Put another one on him and then run. And be careful here, because sometimes you don't have enough time to get to the gate because the sprint is so shit and he'll charge you. He's charging now. So that's the only one where I could have perhaps failed. And now I just put everything in him because I'm out of ammo with the crossbow. And that's the end of the boss. Looked easy, didn't it? It isn't. I was stuck there for much longer than I ever imagined and for much longer than I should have been, because I was standing in the middle of that arena and for whatever reason my shotgun was not downing that creature and I was shooting it point blank range in the face and it was just destroying me. So if you're having trouble, folks, just experiment. Try something different, try something silly, try something stupid. You never know, it just might be the thing that changes what's not working for you. This is really funny too. I didn't realise when you get to the gate that you have to push to get inside. I thought you pressed A and he got inside, so watch this. I was really lucky not to be killed here, but there is a checkpoint, so it doesn't really matter at this point. So boss comes, I think I'm safe, and watch this. I just kind of sit there like an idiot, and so does he. And then I realised, I'm like, oh god, I'm vulnerable. And then I held forward and I got through it.
It's not just about being unable to see. It's about...
I'm sorry, but...
It's alright.
I don't think anybody would have gone for those glasses. In real life, or in a situation remotely close to that, even if that was Cujo, just some crazy rabid dog, you would not have gone in there for those glasses. You would have just kind of stuck it out and perhaps hoped to find more, because that is crazy. But this is the end of the mission, folks. We're going to move into the chapel and it's going to end, and I will see you in Chapter 7. So thank you very much for watching. I hope it's helping, and as always, you take care now.